Hi, this is Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology. This is a tutorial on doing indication technique, three-shade indication technique for doing stones. How you approach stones has a certain amount to do with how large the stones are. Okay. And I will start with a diamond. If a diamond is very small, you won't have anywhere near as much detail as I'm going to put into it, as these facets would indicate. But if it's a large stone, you would. Okay. So, the first thing you would do in a three-value indication for stone is you would lay in a medium gray wash. These lines are in a gel layer above the canvas, which is our usual format or arrangement when we're rendering. Okay. I've taken almost all of the grain out of this brush. And since it's the first shade, it doesn't really matter how opaque it is. I have it set as 70%, but generally when you're painting, you work at around 30. I mean around 50%, somewhere in that area, 30 to 50%. So, but there's my first shade for doing a diamond. Second shade or value is going to be the dark. And this will come in to this quadrant of the stone here. I'm going to use a smaller brush, get a little more control, and take the value, the transparency down to around 30%. And I mean, you don't have to be terribly precise. It's really a matter of just knocking in this quadrant. Normally you will use radiating sorts of brush strokes in a stone, a faceted stone. Okay, so the strokes will tend to radiate toward the center. Okay, that's our second value. We are also going to put this value under these corner facets. Okay, there's basically two types of rendering going on here, two studies of value. One is the pavilion of the stone, which is an upside down cone. So you have shadow here and light on the other side. And then you have the crown of the stone, which is a truncated pyramid facing upward, in which case this is the highlight and this is the shadow. Okay? So you would put shadow here as well. But before you do that, you're going to put in the white. The third value on a diamond, or any colored stone, any stone, is white. Okay? I'm going to come in and apply the white on the pavilion, once again in a radiating pattern. There's no real right or wrong to this. You can be as fancy with it and as careful as you want. You can also be fairly brief and sketchy. It's all fine. Usually I'll put a couple of larger white areas and then small radiating lines. The white is more controlled than the dark, than the shaded color. And then I would come in and do those facets in dark. Now, the thing that separates stone rendering or indicating from metal is that you will have two layers. You'll have a layer above your lines. You need a layer above your lines so that you can actually color or paint on top of your drawing. And for the layer on top, the opacity will go back up high to 80% or so. Still working in my white. I want these brush strokes to be small. In fact, these will often be the smallest brush strokes you would make in an indication or a rendering. This is the only time I would allow myself to use a brush 1.4, which is really about the smallest brush I'll allow myself to use, unless I'm doing Meli for Pave, in which case I might go as low as 1.2 for the facets. You want these facets to be fairly bold, so I will have them obliterate the drawing underneath. Okay. I'll also pick facets along the girdle. To do in white. Okay. It is legitimate to go to a straight line if you prefer. If you want the crispness of that. But that's really it. Okay? I can put more detail in. I can put more small radiating lines if I want. I can put these on top. I can put these below. It doesn't matter. If I have a really large diamond, sometimes I will do a very translucent wash, 16% or so, in diagonals across the table, starting about here and building like it was flat metal. Okay? I can also pick up some of that along here if I want to. If this is starting to look too dark to me, I can bring in some diagonals here. But that's getting extra fussy. Okay? So that's an indication, 3-value indication for a round diamond. Now I'm going to do it in color, same size stone. I'm going to do a Control-Alt-C to copy this stone as I've drawn it. So I'll draw a selection window around it. Control-Alt-C, Control-V. This gives me that same stone now. Fully finished, so I can reuse the version I have here. I just cleared both those layers. I'm going to repeat the same process in color. I'll do a ruby. Okay. Now I have the 72 pencil color set up here. You guys aren't going to have that. So for your purposes, I would just get a red that borders on being violetish and take it slightly darker than it would normally be. Okay. Regular rendering or paint opacity 30 to 50%. A brush big enough to do the job. Down on the canvas, paint. Shade. It's going going to be a darker value of that same red. Using a similar approach to what we did with the diamond. Radiating strokes. Heading up into that corner. Going to white. Smaller brush for more control. Working our pavilion first. Breaking that pavilion up into radiating triangles. Getting a few smaller brush strokes through here. Also radiating in toward the center. And then filling some of these forms in solid white. Power of undo. When we do stones in gouache, you will miss that feature. And once again, you want this side, this corner down here, to be fairly bright, fairly light. Lots of white triangles, not much in the way of shading. You want this area to be fairly consistently dark. Okay, I've done that. I'm now going to put the dark color on these corner facets, lower right hand corner facets, and this is below the drawing because it allows me to keep the drawing as a reference. Intact up above. And I'm going to pick, I could have done this with a diamond too. I don't do it as often with a diamond, but you can. I'm going to pick some corner or some girdle edge facets to make dark as well. Okay? Alright. Going to now go above the drawing, taking my opacity way up. To draw these facets. I'll go ahead and use my straight line. Just making sure that I was above the drawing, because it's important that I be above the drawing. I really want these lines to be crisp, so I'm being quite careful. Enter to finish that triangle. Zoom in a little. That triangle. Okay. This is small enough that it's becoming tedious to actually try and do it with the straight edge. So I'll go back to a freehand curve. There is no right way, you know. Whatever brush style you find gives you these nice hard triangular facets. And as in the diamond, I will pick some girdle edge facets. The technical name for these is upper girdles. Upper girdle facets. To also paint in white. If I don't want to fill a facet all the way in, you'll see I did it under here. I'll just put a diagonal line a little bit away from the edge of it to mimic the effect of light kind of dancing around on that facet. Yeah. I'm now going to use the same kind of eye I used in our rendering study, our shading study, to see if there are areas that look too light or too dark, areas that don't have enough going on in them to add detail to. Okay. Fine. Now, the step that a colored stone has that a diamond doesn't have is it has a glaze. So I'm going to put one more layer. This is our diamond layer here. I'll turn that off. One more layer above everything that I've done. This layer will be gel. And this is to apply a glaze of color over the top. Come back into my red. And I might move this a little warmer in color. It doesn't matter how opaque I make it because I'll actually control the opacity in the layer itself. But I'm going to come in and glaze over the whole stone. I'm not going to play with the sliders yet. I'm going to look at it and decide, okay, which stones or which facets I want to make pure white. And I'll come back in with white paint over the color on a glaze layer. That just goes back to, it removes the glaze. Okay. I don't have to white out entire facets. I can white out areas. Okay. It's a little too thick. Facet line here, a little bit of light towards the girdle over here, not too much though. I don't want to lose the effect that I have. Okay, after I've done that and figure, okay, that's about as much play I want to do as I want to do with it, I will come into the slider in the opacity and I will kick it back. And you can see as I kick the opacity of that gel layer back, I control how light or dark my stone becomes. Something in that area. This became quite purple. That'll happen in a gel layer sometimes. You get a distortion. If that happens, I'll go to Effects, Tonal Control, Adjust Colors, and under Hue Shift, I will move this slider to get the color that I want. And it's usually a pretty gentle shift. Hit OK. And that is the colored stone. Okay? For a round brilliant. Control Alt C, Control V. Okay, so there is the contrast of the two. I'll actually line these up. I'm going to gel the diamond copy I made. position it directly on top and slide it straight down. This is a nice way to be able to organize elements on a page. Okay, so now those are centered, and I'll go back to making it default. I could just leave it gel if I wanted to, because if I make it default, it's going to cover up part of that, which of course I can just slide the layer down if I don't like that. Or I could take a selection window, grab everything above a certain point, and Control X to cut it, so I can see the layer underneath. Okay, so round diamond, ruby. I'll go ahead and clear this stone. Canvas, facets, glaze. I'll even name these. Yeah, a little more detail. Crown, facets. Drawing. Okay. And then I have my two finished stones. Alright. In Painter, once you've made a stone a single layer, you can't do it when it's stacked up in layers of information, but once you do that flattened copy, that Control-Alt-C, once you've done one stone, you've done several. Because of course you can cut and paste. Oh, step 4, I didn't mean to. What I wanted to do was copy and paste the color stone. So, just layer 5. My bad. Okay. Control paste. Paste again. So, if I want to do different colors, okay, all I have to do is go to, once again, Effects, Adjust Colors. That ruby can now be an emerald. That's the green. Moving the value slider will take it lighter or darker. So that stone just became an emerald. This stone will become a sapphire. Once again, playing with the tonality and the lighter darkness of it. Okay. Now this starts to look a little cartoonish, so I can actually back down the saturation as well, so it's not so brightly colored. And you can be quite sophisticated with it. Okay. Emerald, ruby, and sapphire from the same rendering. Okay. Obviously not a bad idea if you are doing a piece that has several stones in it. Okay. Those are my rounds. Alright, let's do some other things quickly. I don't have much more time to spend on this. A big emerald cut stone. Now since it's emerald cut, we'll paint it emerald. Move the color wheel around to the green. Emeralds are rather bluish green. Once again, a little darker than you'd think. Make my brush a reasonable size for blocking this in. go down to my canvas under my drawing. And fill in darker color. I'm going to come in, be a little more precise than I am with the rounds. And do that entire area shaded. Do some more accent areas shaded. Here it's going to be triangles and bars are the standard sort of shading format on the pavilion. Okay. Moving into my white. A similar idea. This area. On the whole. Would be white. Right into this corner. And some more detail. Once again, in the kinds of lines and forms that you would find in an emerald cut stone. Big stones like this are going to ask for greater detail, just because there's more surface area to cover. Alright, so I've done my pavilion. I'm going to do my dark facets on the pavilion. And those will be these three. Now if you don't want to color them all the way in, you can split it with a diagonal. If it's a great big stone, coloring it all in one color like that actually becomes kind of dull, so you might split it with diagonals. Very easy to do in Painter, because I can paint the whole facet dark and then split it with a diagonal. Okay. And now crown facets going above my drawing. Same idea holds. Okay. On a big stone like this, you might actually prefer to stay down on the ground. You don't need to obliterate the lines. On a tinier stone you do, because the lines will make a black outline around all of your facets, and since you want your white facets to really show, having a black outline all the way around them messes things up a little bit. I'm going to split these two with white. Come around here. I'll split this one diagonally. Do one here. Okay. Maybe put a diagonal slice on that one. And come in maybe to this with a dark streak here and there. Okay. Don't want to go crazy with it. That's plenty of detail. Alright, now that I've done that, I'm going to look at it and evaluate. I need a little more light in the pavilion through here. Doesn't take a lot. A single line, the right line, a dot, you know, a triangle, whatever you feel like you need to get a little more action going on. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to put the glaze in. Glaze. Go back to my green. Go ahead and put the opacity all the way back up again. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll drop that glaze to about 63%, because that's usually about where it ends up, 50-60%. And that'll help me control that color so I don't have to necessarily come back in and do it later with an adjust color control. Going to just come in, cover the whole stone. And tick back out what I want hard white. Okay. What I don't want so hard and white, I'll do a softer, quicker brush stroke on. That's it. Emerald. Okay. If I decide I've done too much, I can come back in with the green again. If I wanted to put different colors of green, I could do that, but that's more for rendering. This is just for indication. Okay? So there we go. And once again, if I want to change the colors or play with it some more, I could Control Alt. I have to select it first. Draw selection window. I can. By the way, notice how I didn't stay within the lines and I didn't worry about it. Because I'm working in Painter, I can come in anytime I want to on the canvas layer and clean that up. Now, that's if it's on the canvas layer. Some of that color there is on the glaze layer, so select the glaze layer. You know, my drawing is sacred. It won't get hurt, so I'm fine. Control Alt C, Control V. That gives me the opaque version. Okay, I can move it out of the way. And once again, if I want to change colors of that stone, I can adjust colors, and I can make this into a peridot, for example. emerald peridot. Okay, I'm going to do one of the pairs. I'll do this one. I'll do an amethyst. Go down to my canvas. Purple's very dark to begin with, so I'll actually go a little bit lighter than the true color. And a little bit on the bluer side. Almost tanzanite. An appropriately large brush for filling in a big area. Here I'll go into the regular dark shade. Okay. It's easy to go very inky. Now notice how blue that looks. I don't want it that blue. The way Painter is going to compile the colors is in its own way kind of as random as gouache. You can get some unusual casts of warm or dark color that you weren't planning on. You have to be aware of. Once again, just radiating shapes. Going to my white. Once again, mostly just radiating shapes. Not being terribly concerned about precision. Wanting this area to be fairly solidly in the light. I want light underneath these dark facets. I want dark under these light facets. So that's what I'm keeping in mind as I lay things in. If I want precision, I have to be careful, because if I do this, then it's going to look overly precise compared to the rest of the stone. So you have that ability to go that route, but if you go that route, you have to do the whole stone that way. And I would rather keep it, especially for indication, looser. A little more wabi-sabi. Okay. I'm going to put some more darks in here, but not until I draw my color in my shaded crown facets. This is a really big stone, so I'll do all my faceting on the canvas layer. And then using the principles from our value study, where I feel that some more detail would be interesting or helpful, I'll add it. Okay, going to do my white facets. Problem is that the way this drawing is done, this was done in Painter, not in Rhino, and I let these be curved. Real facets aren't curved. This is an old drawing, So I'm going to go back up to high opacity, small brush on the layer above my drawing, my crown facets layer. And crispen that up. Now, there is a school of design rendering, not a school, but some designers prefer to have this be their most important facet. So I'll do that to show you what that looks like. Some upper girdle facets. And really, I'm just trying to get a balance now of light and dark. Make an attractive pattern. I'll go back on my canvas. I don't want to lose my drawing for these more detailed strokes that I'm making. Okay, fine. Glaze. The glaze is going to be more decidedly red and lighter. Appropriately sized brush. Transparency back down into the 30-40% range. Cover the whole stone. Okay, that's a little too red. That's better. But Painter is doing one of those strange compositional things where it is turning, as I glaze the lavender, it's turning the base color very blue. It's because I'm using a gel layer, and gel layers have sometimes an unpredictable impact on what's underneath. I don't care about that right now. I can adjust that later. I'm more concerned about picking out my brightest facets, my pure whites. Facets. I want to put a hard white line on that. The easiest way to do it would be to put actually another layer on top of the glaze. But I'll put it on the crown facets for now. Tiny. Never one that doesn't work. 1.4. Highly opaque. Straight line. I want the light to catch off of the edge of those two facets. Oops, I hit enter. I shouldn't have hit enter. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to come into my glaze now and remove the glaze from those two crisp edges I just did. Now, okay, that's my stone. That's enough detail for a pear-shaped stone, especially for an indication. My thing is I don't like the color of the background. I can't pick up the whole stone and change the color this time. If I do that, the whole thing is going to shift. I need to shift just the canvas. So I'm going to select the canvas, layer, make a selection about what I want to change, and adjust colors. And see, I can change just the colors of the canvas layer. Kick back the saturation a bit. Maybe kick back the value a little bit. Okay, so I can play with that. Hit OK. And then I can come back in with the glaze and make it more or less opaque. Okay. As far as cleaning up the edges, I know those colors are either on the canvas or on the glaze. I'll try cleaning them on the canvas first, and if that doesn't get it, I'll get them off the glaze. Okay, so there is a pear shape. Once again, Control-Alt-C, Control-V. We'll put a fresh one on top, which I can then move out of the way if I want to play with the color. So this one I want to take to Hessianite Garnet. That'd be good. Okay. So that's it. Indicated color stones. Thanks for watching.